Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to a new episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Tuesday night on November 26th, 2024, as we record this new episode. This episode marks our Thanksgiving edition of the show as we attempt to find how we could be thankful for the Chicago White Sox in 2024. I know there's many examples that we could be extremely thankful for this franchise in 2024. I'm kidding, of course, but we will try our damnedest to find some things to be thankful for with the White Sox. And of course, we have our personal thanks as well. And of course, our wonderful Sox Machine community to be thankful for. We also know where SoxFest is going to be as the Chicago White Sox change up the event format. There's also a Garrett Crochet trade offer rumor reported from Nightengale that we can chew on. While it's the offseason and White Sox general manager Chris Getz is trying to find ways to improve this roster to help save their value and improve the White Sox defense, who should be considered seriously as the primary designated hitter to start the 2025 season? Andrew Benintendi or Andrew Vaughn? And then finally, the Juan Soto sweepstakes are heating up. Who are our picks for the team to sign this offseason's biggest free agent? So let's get started. Joining me are Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And hello, gents. This is our Thanksgiving episode. So let's talk about our Thanksgiving Day plans. Jim, I'll start with you, man. What do you got planned for Thanksgiving?
Doing a Friendsgiving and not hosting, so that's great. We just have to bring some sides and some wine. So yeah, I'm all for that.
So what are the sides? Like, do you have a specialty? Do either you or your wife have a specialty side that you like to make?
She makes a real good cranberry sauce, so she's bringing that, some sweet potatoes, and I think stuffing they're handling on the turkey side. So yeah, and then one of their friends is bringing a dessert, so should be low key, but a proper Thanksgiving, which I haven't had many of, having been working remote. A lot of times, like when I was in New York, I loved working Thanksgiving because it was double time and a half for a very slow news day.
Oh, damn.
So I always took that one and then went home for Christmas. So it's nice to kind of get back into the proper Thanksgiving celebrations.
Yeah, that's awesome. Being a ex-Scani, anytime I hear cranberry sauce, warms my heart because, of course, for those that did not know, cranberries are the official state fruit of Wisconsin because they grow them. Ocean Spray gets the majority of their cranberries from Wisconsin. So a little fun fact there. How about you, James?
I thought it was Massachusetts.
What was that?
I thought it was Massachusetts.
They could be
where the
both.
Cranberries were. I've been to the Cranberry Museum, I believe, in Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh, well,
on a family vacation, like when I was like 8 years old. Yeah,
Salem, witches and cranberries. Who knew?
Yep.
The only cranberries that matter are from Limerick, Ireland. As we all know.
Yes. So James, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
I'm driving to Vermont. That's been the designated family rendezvous point. How we got to Vermont in late November is sort of the shades of White Sox free agency, and that it takes a lot of like contextual explanation to explain a result that to the casual observer makes no sense and doesn't seem like how we got here. But I have a lot of time to ponder and drive and figure out.
Yeah, shades of White Sox free agency is that's at a parking lot in a diner in Vermont is when I learned that the White Sox were not signing Manny Machado.
Oh. I was at the Mount Gay Rum Distillery in Barbados when that news broke. It was the only place I had Wi-Fi. So as soon as I signed on to Wi-Fi, I saw Jeff Passan's breaking news tweet. So, yeah.
real mystery team winning the bidding vibes to my Thanksgiving.
I'm staying within the area, visiting the in-laws there in Northwest Indiana. Yeah, should be a good time. They do an excellent job. My wife's family, they do an excellent job cooking as far as Thanksgiving. Growing up, Thanksgiving was not that big of a deal. I will have a column for Black Friday. You'll learn why it's not a big deal, because I've been working Black Fridays for a really long time, so that doesn't give you a lot of opportunity to actually enjoy Thanksgiving, but I'll actually be able to do so this year. So should be a good time, and we all hope that you also have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And staying on topic, let's share what we are thankful for the 2024 Chicago White Sox season. And Jim, I will let you start the festivities. What are you thankful for with the White Sox this year?
The Birmingham Barons might be like the one earnest answer that I have, and not tinged with sarcasm or cynicism at all, because they're the closest team in my orbit, about a 3-hour drive, and I saw them in Rickwood, I saw them in Knoxville, and easy to get around and see them in the Southeast, and always a pleasure to talk to everybody there. John Eli, Scott Merkin just broke that he's going to be leaving the organization because they just had a kid. So congratulations to him. But being able to check in with him and watch Noah Schultz at various places, and then talk to him about how great Birmingham's pitchers were doing. It was a quality respite from everything going wrong with the White Sox above them. And so, yeah, I always enjoyed my trips, and kind of it'd been a while since I'd been in a position to kind of make repeat visits and talk to people and follow up. And, I imagine that's, what James gets to do all the time, rather than, once every, 5 months, be able to try to hope people remember you, being able to follow up in conversations was very informative, insightful. And so, the fact that they played good baseball on top of that, and, had some nice successes individually and as a team was very it felt competent, and it felt well-rounded, intentional, meaningful, everything like that. So hats off to Birmingham.
Now, that's a great one, Jim. Didn't the Barons just announce that they're going back to Rickwood?
Yes. That's another thing I'm thankful for, is that they're reinstating the Rickwood Classic, just part of Birmingham's regular season schedule. So I'm curious to see what it'll look like once the circus has gone, and all the the lighting and the security measures that they had for staging a major league event are gone. I'm hoping that it returns to the neighborhood. I think James saw it. I didn't get to see it in its original state, so I'm curious what's going to look like now that Major League Baseball is not in its immediate plans, and maybe it will be more of a driving by it and actually seeing the park versus just seeing perimeters of security and huge equipment trucks blocking your view from anything that you could see from the street.
James, was that a day game?
It was. I was just wandering around the outfield with Bernardo Flores pregame, since he was hurt and everyone else was taking batting practice, and he was just taking photos. A client got to go up on the roof mid game, and I was up there when Luis Robert hit a triple, which I like to tell people is given the zoomed out view you had of it, it was the closest you see to a human consuming the star in Mario in real life, and just running around and thwarting everyone in his path. So yeah, it was a very unique historical experience. It was also very intimate, you were buying tickets to a show with a matinee that 13 other people were at. So it was pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, that's an excellent reason to be thankful for the White Sox, the AA affiliate, the Birmingham Barons. So I like your choice, Jim. How about you, James? What are you thankful for with the 2024 White Sox?
Jim went earnest, and I have one too, but I was thinking, as we were talking about holidays, at one time on this job, I got disturbed on Christmas Day because they were signing Edwin Encarnacion for 1 year on a whole $10 million. Unthinkable. Crazy.
No buyout, right? No buyout.
No buyout. Straight 110. So now that I'm relieved from such stressors, that's relaxing thing to take into a holidays, to know that such perilous news will not be dropped on my doorstep. The past history of trades on my wedding anniversary that we're very much still in risk of, not to segue to later parts of the show too hard, Not safe from that, but a quiet Christmas day in terms of free agency signings. I'm thankful. I'm obviously thankful that this year has been a respite to returning to doing this job. Obviously, we're planning on it being much more than a year, but I think to have a season where, I mean, I suppose this is true with the Athletic a little bit, but screw them. To have a year where kind of my work here is very much like you can feel that it's enabled by the support of the readers who wanted it. Feels very rewarding, feels very like a kind of direct relationship with your customers that you want, where it feels like they're supporting really your passion project because they're passionate about it too, and we get to help one another. Very rewarding experience. Thankful to the White Sox themselves, who, as much as it's still kind of a complicated relationship credentialing wise that we're figuring out with BBWA, they have cooperated with us in a way where it seems like they very much of showing like their appreciation of what my coverage brings to the general mix of White Sox coverage. Like, they came to me like, hey, you'd probably want, knowing my work, you'd probably want to talk to Ryan Fuller a bit longer, wouldn't you? And set that up independently on themselves. And that's kind of kind of representative of the way they've treated me all year, where they've kind of really kind of gotten what I do now over these last several years, and are supportive of it and do things to enable it. And so I think I have to appreciate them and the relationships I have with them for making this year what would seem like an unthinkable project 10 years ago fairly smooth, I think, compared to, what our expectations might have been coming in.
No, the great reasons to be thankful. Yes, thank you, White Sox. Thank you to the White Sox media team as well for being very cooperative for a historic season, especially that last week when all the national media people are coming in. People from the New York Times are sitting with us in Section 108, trying to get the vibes and try to understand what in the world was unfolding entering the last week. And speaking of that last week, I am super thankful for the White Sox to finish the season the way they did. As some way, somehow, they allowed fewer runs in 2024 than in 2023, and it cost me a steak dinner. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, the final bill of me losing that steak dinner bet was $520.
For two people.
What did you have?
For two people.
I was thinking, did you bring this? I was wondering, like, did you bring the spouse? That was my first thought when I saw the bill. Like, oh, it was a table of four, and that would be fine.
No.
Good Lord.
No. So Beef Loaf got the shrimp cocktail, and then we split like this pork belly type of appetizer. I got a Caesar salad. He got the Cajun ribeye. I had a New York strip. And then when you add in the sides of like the mushrooms and the Brussels sprouts and the onion rings and the desserts, but it's the drinks that get you. And we were just chatting, sharing stories. If you don't...
Wait, Beef Loaf drinks?
Beef Loaf drinks, yeah, I know, right? You would never think it. He even had a head start on me. He had a dirty martini before I even showed up. So he was well lubricated.
Did he put that on the bill?
He did not. That was a nice thing. He didn't include that drink. We had drinks after dinner that he did pay for, so I am appreciative. But we have crazy stories. So if you, obviously a lot of people love the NFL and people are aware of like survivor pools, but he and Chirizi, they won a huge survivor pool where they won tens of thousands of dollars. So we just had crazy stories. The drinks were flowing. Yeah, it was a great time. But yes, thanks to the White Sox outstanding pitching staff in the final week. Instead of him spending $520, it's me. I had to spend $520.
So you're spending $520 to listen to Beef Loaf tell you how he won tens of thousands of dollars.
To be fair, though, I was sharing him my successful slot machine story on the cruise ship where I won like more than like $1,500. So I was easily able to pay for the steak dinner bet. But yeah, I know. He's telling me I won tens of thousands of dollars and here I am footing the bill. So again, at least he paid for the post-dinner drinks. But yes, I am very thankful for the White Sox and how they finished the season. Also, in a way, sarcastically, I'm also thankful we got to witness history. Just as baseball fans, even though this is a team that we follow every single day, we're going to remember this season, even though how awful it was, and hopefully they're better in 2025. But it had been, 60 plus years, Jim, since the Mets lost 120 games. Like, this type of season may never happen again in our lifetime. And we got to watch it. It was painful at times, but it is baseball history, and baseball history is cool.
Yeah, and it's easier for us to say losing a season versus like American League record or some kind of losing a season since, et cetera, to where you just have to add more words to it and loses its punch. Whereas 121 loss season, very much a like just, rattles your brain, full stop. What the hell just happened here? Like, casual baseball fans can process that in a way that like maybe 115 losses, like that sounds like a lot. Is that historic? No. Okay. It must not be that bad. Whereas, with the White Sox, even just setting the record by 1 when they could have set it by like 3 or 4, maybe even more at some points of September, it looked like they could have really blasted past it. That, it's still, impressive. And I'm grateful just for a word count of articles being able to just say losingest, modern MLB record versus near record, league record, et cetera, to where it just loses some of its punch.
I'm thankful that they lost 121 because breaking it by 1 game means that I'll like randomly sit up in my chair like at 9 o'clock at night and be like, Kopech just throws a cutter to Berger at any point. Like they don't set a record. What?
Jankowski, if he does not rob Andrew Vaughn.
Random moments like that.
Walk-off bid, yeah. Yeah, speaking of, while going around the table, I'm thankful that James joined us because I have thought about like, what the hell would we have done? Just the two of us trying to write about this. It's hard enough writing about like 100 loss season, 101 loss season. But there was some variety there. There was some novelty with Pedro Grifol and trying to figure out what he was all about and figuring out like, there's not much there, but at least there was some sort of exploration to that, to where it was, it felt interesting, even if it wasn't fulfilling in the end. Like, there was the journey, not the destination, really, when it came to learning about, who the White Sox new manager was as the games got going. But having seen like the same problems arise, having seen like no help on the horizon, just Chris Getz' one idea disintegrating immediately upon hitting oxygen. I think that was I think about 5 months left of 3, 4, 9 9 win months, and just no real progress, nothing to write about, and figuring like, how would we have done that without like firsthand accounts, without original reporting, without just being able to pivot and interest ourselves with James's firsthand accounts and being able to say like, hey, can you poke at this because we can't? Like, that made it a lot more interesting. And I'm glad I don't have to think about like how I would have done it from a distance, and especially like how we would have done it without James on the beat at all. Given that like, I think one of his strong suits is like knowing his limit of misery and just trying to find anything interesting to write about, even if it's like just, here's some equipment they're using at AA. Like, maybe that's not what the back page reader of the Sun-Times necessarily wants to read, but for his own sanity, like, it's like, I need to pivot and just, write something of a palate cleanser before returning to awful baseball. And, if we didn't have those stories, even, at another location, like, it would have been a really just tough, dreadful year, even more than it was. So I'm glad that we were able to, spread the workload around to kind of take turns and take breaks covering it, but also to find ways to interest each other.
Yes, James. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any personal thanks, James?
Beyond thanking everybody.
So I'll take the ball here from you, James. I want to thank, again, our Sox Machine Patreon supporters, but also the entire White Sox fan community. Even though this team was historically awful, the turnout that we had, at our event, opening day eve, more than 150 people came on a Wednesday night to see a live podcast that we hosted along with their friends from the 108 at Remova. Milwaukee, despite being 60 degrees in the summer and downpour rain, along with the Chicago sports bums and the 108ers and all the tents that we had, to have that big tailgate before the White Sox Brewers game, had hundreds of people show up, even in the rain, to hang out with us. And when things got really bleak, we still had more than 100 people show up in Kansas City to be able to tour the Negro League Museum and go to the White Sox and Royals games and meet up pregame and taking the bus to Kauffman Stadium. It was an awful year, but some way, somehow, the White Sox fan community stuck through the entire season. And that warms my heart because hopefully better days are coming sooner than later, and we'll be able to do bigger and better things. We're going to be doing more live events going to 2025. We're going to be in Pittsburgh. We're going to be visiting PNC Park, one of the best stadiums in Major League Baseball, for our next road trip in July. And the fact that it wasn't just like a dozen people, Jim, that showed up to these live events, like we're getting hundreds of people to show up. Even hundreds of people are showing up to the tailgates that the Bums are hosting for a Saturday night game at Guarantee Ray Field. Even John Schriffen is showing up to those tailgates. White Sox fans still care. Apathy hasn't completely taken over the fan base. It has for some, but there's still enough to help support us at Sox Machine and to support the live event endeavors that we take place.
Yeah, and thanks to Kansas City for being 72 degrees in July. Yeah, like, that was awesome.
I was worried about that.
I don't know how the hell that happened, but I'll take that.
Right. So bad luck weather-wise in Milwaukee. Great weather for us in Kansas City, so it all balances out. But again, we're extremely thankful for everyone that listens to this podcast as well, reads our work daily at SoxMachine.com. The comments are still flowing every single day for all the posts, so there's still a lot of activity, still a lot of engagement. We are greatly appreciative of all of you. So again, thank you so much for sticking with us in 2024.
The holidays are here at the Home Depot. If you're working on getting ready for company,
a lot of company,
make sure you're ready with Black Friday savings. Get up to 40% off select appliances, plus up to an extra $1,000 off select kitchen appliances. Upgrade your kitchen with top brands like GE Profile and get sleek cutting-edge appliances to make sure you've
got hosting handled.
Yeah, you do. Get Black Friday savings now with free delivery and financing on select appliances this holiday at the Home Depot. Offer valid November 6th through December 4th. U.S. only. See store online for details.
Moving forward, the Chicago White Sox, speaking of live events, they have announced that SoxFest is coming back. So it is happening. They're calling it SoxFest Live. It'll be happening Friday and Saturday, January 24th, 25th, 2025 at the Remova Theater. So in Bridgeport, just as we mentioned, we had our opening day eve show at Remova last March. We are very familiar with the venue. It's a great place to see a show. The tap room, the beer, the food that's curated by Jim's second cousin is excellent. What is interesting about the format and how it's much different from past SoxFest, on each day, it's 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Friday and Saturday. It's not an all-day event, especially on Saturday, where it would start at like 9 in the morning and go all the way through 6 p.m. That's not how it's set up anymore. General admission tickets are now on sale on WhiteSox.com. General admission tickets are $56. There is the MVP experience. It's $225 each day. There will be meet and greet sessions with that type of ticket, in which you get to meet White Sox players, personalities, managers, coaches, etc. For those with kids, if you are interested, the White Sox are still having their SoxFest Kids Camp. That's going to be from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. in each day at the ComEd Rec Center. If you don't know where that's located, it's in Adams Park. It's on 15th and Ashland in that part of Chicago. So again, SoxFest is coming back. Details were officially announced, and tickets are also available.
Well, I wish they called it SoxFest After Dark.
Well, we don't want that to happen because our friends from the 108 are having 108 Live on Saturday, January 25th. And I should give that a shout out as well. So if you think it's too expensive and you don't have any interest in going to SoxFest at Remova, our friends from the 108 are still hosting their Big Bash, the live party at Reggie's, which is the rock bar in the South Loop. Tickets are on sale right now. Go to fromthe108.com. It's just $15 right now for general admission. So if $56 is too much, pay the $15 and we'll see you there. We'll all be together and have a great time, share some laughs, plenty of drinks, plenty of hashtag 108ing. So that is also an opportunity as well if you don't want to pay the $56. But yeah, Jim, we do need to learn more about the format of how SoxFest is going to be, because at this moment as we're recording, I'm still not sure, but we do have dates, we have times, and we have a venue. It is a couple months away. That's a lot more certainty than a couple weeks ago when it was still in the air of, is this still happening?
I think it'd be fun if they dropped in like a bunch of White Sox players. They talk about like kind of sound like free range mingling. And I wonder if that's a plan to just have like White Sox players dressed up in street clothes and see how many people get recognized. Like if Jacob Amaya walks right by you, like would fans recognize?
You notice.
Brooks Baldwin and just like, does somebody card him? Like if he goes to get a drink?
They should either way.
Yeah.
They should. I hope Andrew Vaughn is there. That would be a very popular photo, especially on social media. Everyone measuring up height-wise to Andrew Vaughn so they can see in person, is he really 6 feet tall?
He's got the DeSantis shoes.
Wearing platforms.
Sox fans become heroes because they enrage him into a 40 home run season.
Yes. Hey, we'll take it. Whatever works. Whatever works. Okay, I said baseball news, but it's really not baseball news. Bob Nightengale, in his Sunday column on USA Today, shared this type of rumor when he was talking about the top storylines entering Thanksgiving. And of course, winter meetings is just around the corner in early December down in Dallas. Jim and James will be there to cover the event for us at Sox Machine. But this little nugget in his particular style for Bob Nightengale wrote about how the Philadelphia Phillies, in their pursuit of Garrett Crochet, are rumored to offer their current third baseman, Alec Bohm, plus one of their top position player prospects, Justin Crawford, as their headliner of a deal for Garrett Crochet. Now, what makes this interesting is that Alec Bohm, on the good news, he did earn an all-star nod. He had his best season of his young career. He was worth 3 WAR. He had 44 doubles and 15 homers. His OPS plus, if you go to baseballreference.com, was 117. That's 17% better than league average. Good numbers. But with Bohm, it's a tale of two halves. The first half, he had 830 OPS. In the second half, he had just 251 with a 299 on base percentage, and his slugging percentage dropped by 100 points. And with his contract, he is projected to make $8.1 million, according to MLB trade rumors. He has one more year of arbitration after 2025 and 2026. After the 2026 season going to 2027, Bohm's a free agent. So it's 2 years of Alec Bohm, plus Crawford, who is currently MLB.com's number 53rd ranked prospect. He is the son of Carl Crawford, the former Rays, Red Sox, Dodgers speedster. Crawford is just 20 years old. He turns 21 in January. He had a very good offensive season in 2024, hitting .313 across 2 levels. And of course, just like his dad, stole 42 bases. Again, this is just gossip from Nightengale's column in USA Today. But James, it has me thinking here. Does this kind of trade format meet Chris Getz's requirements in a Garrett Crochet trade?
On the surface, thing is, like, I don't know if we can really like put these names into like, this is what the package was and this is how it would have looked, sort. And you know, some of the chatter I've been around, like maybe the stuff leaking out is because Phil talked with Phillies. is kind of petering out. And this is more like what it was. But on the surface, no. um, you know, the reason Crochet is, someone you think of trading, if for no other reason than his profile, like started pitching being more erratic and, a long injury history, is that he doesn't have much control. And so thus trading for a corner guy who has never had an 800 OPS, who has the same level of control, not very enticing. It would fit in the general idea that, something you've heard talked about the White Sox, since the second half, is that maybe some of their offseason dealing would involve trading something to flip it, since they kind of have this amorphous roster where it's not like you're upsetting a delicate player balance that by moving pieces out or acting as a clearinghouse. So that could be one area, but even then, like, just Bohm seems like on the low side of value of Crochet, where it's a team that's kind of viewing him as more volatile, somebody who hasn't been productive before this year and hasn't been healthy before this year, and thus you're thinking of him on that kind of 3-win level and trading another 3-win player for him rather than somebody with more frontline ceiling. And the White Sox would probably want someone who has a fairly irrational look at Garrett Crochet than some looking at like what their baseline projection comes out to, given how up and down his history was before last year. Crawford, there's talk that he's really adding strength, and so maybe there's a bit more power projection than you've seen so far. And he's been really on the ground ball a lot, on the ground a lot with his contact, but there's supposed to be fixes to that that could take form, since he's kind of a raw guy baseball wise, despite his lineage. But certainly, if like you take it what he's been so far and just think those fixes are going to make what he's been doing translate to a higher level, it's a center fielder that's glove first without a ton of power, and the ceiling is kind of on that 3-win ceiling that is not the sort of swing that you're hoping to get. There's definitely valuable to add these sort of prospects who have like these kind of skills that make them easy big leaguers. It looks kind of like a souped up Dominic Fletcher, but 5 years younger. Having a bunch of guys in the system is obviously good. Having future big leaguers in your system is obviously good, but it maybe isn't the big centerpiece of the future contending window that you look to get in this Crochet package. Maybe that's not realistic as we think. If we're drawn away from seeing Crochet dominate night in, night out, and we're looking more at his longer resume, maybe what teams are looking at the entire time. But at this point, doesn't seem like the archetype of what you hope they get from this sort of deal. It very much seems not having the ceiling that you want it, given that in the right light, Crochet looks like a guy who's going to dominate the league for years to come, and appealing as an extension candidate for as much the teams that would get him as potentially what would make it work for the White Sox. So my larger, summed up in far fewer words reaction is kind of bleh. With that, I hand it over to Jim.
Well, my reservation with the Phillies is unrelated project. I was going through the 2nd through 5th round picks of every team because Gavin Sheets, recently non-tendered by the White Sox, has a claim to be the most successful 2nd round pick the White Sox have had in the last 20 years, even though he was below replacement level. Like, Jake Petrichka and Trace Thompson were theoretically better, but Sheets was more enduring. So it depends on whether you look at like pure wins above replacements, which can be gamed between like the 2 and above and 2 below, versus like somebody kept getting, good enough to keep getting chances, whereas like, Petrichka got hurt and then he was kind of out, and then Thompson got hurt and he's been out. So like, whereas Sheets is kind of built indestructibly, do you consider him the most successful? Like, he has a case for it. But I was looking to see just how poorly the White Sox had drafted in, after the first round, with like other either 7-figure picks or high 6-figure picks. And they're near the bottom. And one of the teams that drafted worse than the White Sox is the Phillies, partially because they do give away a lot of 2nd round picks, signing cool and interesting players who have draft pick compensation attached. So like, that's part of it, is they've had fewer shots, but also like it fits within Dave Dombrowski's MO of just like, not focusing too much on the draft, not necessarily developing players, just more like using them as currency to acquire better players who help out his immediate vision more. And, going back to the Tigers in 20 years, like kind of fits the same thing. Like they didn't draft all that well with the Tigers during Dombrowski's later years. And they kind of had to pay the price for that at the end. So like, that's what makes me think, like, if Dombrowski's willing to trade them, like, are they that good? Like if he's somebody who's all about winning now and he's like, I can give up that guy, like his history with the Phillies and with the Tigers suggests that there's a reason why he's giving him up. Like if he thought there was any chance that they could help him win in a meaningful way, he would probably hold on to them because that's the kind of player he hoards. And anybody who doesn't, help that immediate vision is the one that gets treated as more fungible and is willing to ship out.
Was it Dombrowski that let Avisail Garcia go or traded Avi to the White Sox? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And also like 6 players from Miguel Cabrera.
Well, I mean, that worked out great for Detroit.
Like Cameron Maben and Miller and such. So yeah.
Yeah. You do have to be careful making trades with Dave Dombrowski, but the whole idea of like Alec Bohm, like this is where it does get the gears turning, at least the thought process of what could other teams offer to Garrett Crochet. Because maybe, Jim, from Dombrowski's point of view, here I am trying to make another deal for a very talented left-handed starting pitcher. But last time I did this, Chris Sale was well established. Garrett Crochet's had one good year as a starter. There's a difference here. The price tag cannot be what it was when I traded Yohan Moncada, Michael Kopech, and 2 other prospects for Chris Sale. So I could kind of see where Dombrowski's coming from with Chris Getz and saying, Crochet's talented, don't get me wrong, but he just doesn't have the track record like Chris Sale does. So if other teams kind of follow Dombrowski's path here, and let's say this is a realistic trade offer from Dombrowski to Chris Getz for Garrett Crochet, Jim, does an Alec Bohm or equivalent MLB position player offered in exchange for Crochet, is that a good idea of a return for the White Sox?
It feels fair or unexciting, kind of blah, as James was saying, but it does. You can't laugh it off, or you can't scoff at it and say like, oh, that's not nearly enough. I think the problem with like the White Sox is they need so much help. You can't look at Crochet like a silver bullet the way like when they traded Sale at peak powers and Jose Quintana and Adam Eaton, pretty much selling high in all of them, and that looked pretty incredible. And to try to replicate that with somebody who is just healthy for the first time and has 2 years of control left, it almost feels like should they just extend somebody like Crochet versus like get somebody who's basically like his equivalent as a position player, and then like kind of a lottery ticket, or somebody who might be a complimentary player, but maybe not a needle mover given how much help the White Sox need. Like that's where it gets tricky. And why it could be hard driving a bargain, kind of like he had a hard time getting what he thought was fair positional player value for Dylan Cease in the spring. People were kind of disappointed to see pitcher for pitcher when they needed so much help hitting, but he said the offers weren't there. So I could see it being a case where, it is more of the same and he does have to try to, use more leverage. But I think with Bohm, my reservation is just like he was drafted 1 pick ahead of Nick Madrigal, which reminds me of Andrew Benintendi being selected 1 pick ahead of Carson Fulmer. And then, Rick Hahn saying like, I got to get my Andrew Benintendi, like just feels like it has echoes of previous poor White Sox decisions. And when you have like Crochet as like the most valuable asset they have, you have to be careful with it, and you do have to field more offers. So like, I think it's like a fair value from the Phillies side, but it would be disappointing just because like Bohm's good, he's fine, not great. And then, you still approach this like, is he going to be part of the next good team, White Sox team, without an extension? And if so, like, why not extend Crochet, or just you have the same conversations over and over again?
Yeah, it's more like, well, maybe Justin Crawford could be part of the next great White Sox team. Alec is just here to help sell some tickets and get the White Sox from 41 wins to 50, maybe 60 wins in 2025. And we'll see.
Imagine like he would be Alex bummed out, just how like going from the Phillies and how fun that looks to the White Sox.
Yeah, especially what we saw with Miguel Vargas' reaction joining the White Sox.
I guess you'd have like, you would have like the year-to-year motivation of like the ARB trajectory that currently Miguel Vargas does not have to be like a very clear external motivator. But in this case, I could still see like a huge like, oh man, this sucks. And it was so much fun, and now it isn't.
Yeah. In that same column too, Nightengale wrote a little bit. He got, of course, some anonymous quotes, probably from the GM meetings regarding Luis Robert. Something that I'm also chewing on, and I need to think about this more, especially after the weekend as we lead up to the winter meeting. So I'm bookmarking this topic, podcast listeners, but we will definitely talk about this previewing the winter meetings. I am pretty certain that other teams are going to continue to lowball offers for Luis Robert to Chris Getz, because their thinking is it's 2 club options and 1 guarantee year. I can only make a trade, an offer, Chris, for that 1 guarantee year, because if I trade for Luis Robert and he stinks, we're going to do what you're going to do. We're going to buy him out. So no, I'm not giving you players because you think it's 3 years of control. No, it's 1 year. That could possibly be 3 years of control. That's a different type of offer than Garrett Crochet, which you do have guaranteed 3 years of control. So we'll see. Again, it's Nightengale. It's anonymous quotes. We don't have a lot to chew on in the offseason right now, but let's bookmark that and let's see if things further develop as we get closer to the winter meetings on just how realistic it is for Chris Getz to trade Luis Robert. I don't think it is realistic this offseason. I think we all have to wait and see if Robert can blow up again in the first half, and maybe those conversations get more serious in July, but I'm pretty certain that Garrett Crochet will be traded.
At Sierra, discover joyous deals on great gifts for everyone on your list, like cozy slippers, ski gear, fishing poles, bikes, large kayaks, even larger canoes. Whew, which might lead to another discovery. Wrapping gifts is the only sport you need to stay fit this season. 'Tis the season to discover great gifts at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to tell you about Michelob Ultra Courtside. It's getting fans closer to the NBA with a chance to win prizes like courtside seats, a trip to All-Star Weekend, and much more. Check it out at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Superior Access, Courtside 24-25 sweepstakes, no purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 and up. Begins on October 1st, 2024, ends July 1st, 2025. Multiple entry periods. Visit MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, and official rules. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
Moving over to James's excellent defensive column. So, if you didn't get a chance to read this, he posted it on Tuesday at SoxMachine.com about ways that the White Sox can improve defensively. It's not, I wouldn't call it scathing, but James does punch a hole in what was the White Sox goal in 2024, to be better defensively, and boy, they fell way short of that. But James, I want to ask you about something that you kind of toss out there in one of the beginning paragraphs on how the White Sox can immediately improve defensively. And that is get rid of the gloves for Andrew Benintendi and Andrew Vaughn. Get them off first base, get them out of left field. And then if you just put someone average defensively at either position, you could see a pretty big boost. But unfortunately, teams cannot have 2 DHs in the same lineup. So you do pose this type of question. If you had to pick one to be penciled as the DH starting 2025, who should it be, Andrew Benintendi or Andrew Vaughn? And James, with you going through this thought exercise and writing it up, how do you feel? Like if the White Sox had to choose one or the other, who would you take out of the field and be the DH and then use the rest of this offseason and try to find a better defensive player at that position?
Well, as I wrote, like Benintendi's probably the better fit for it because he's hit like a DH in the second half. and I mean that in a good way. He was well above average and productive, especially against right-handed pitching. And he was the one who probably more consistently struggled defensively. Like some metrics seemingly just thought Vaughn was just a below average first baseman and not like seemingly one of the worst ones in the league. Like he spiked in some. Benintendi, I think you could see in every way, like, already didn't have a strong throwing arm, but it was clearly slowed in his breaks and his bursts by his Achilles. He just scored very poorly defensively all season. That said, like, and I think it's probably because they're already leaning one direction. They're not like as well built to really, supplant Benintendi as an everyday left fielder. Like it counts on something like Zach DeLoach and Dominic Fletcher both being like starter caliber corner outfielders, which clearly is not something the White Sox even believe was the case because they weren't quick to really give DeLoach that kind of run in any way. Pedro Gaffol pretty much very quickly. I remember a conversation in April about Sheets going back in the right field and, wound up eating away Dominic Fletcher's playing time in any real way until late August. It was just, wasn't your plan to kind of get Sheets out of right field. And Sheets was kind of top people, negative on these defensive ratings as well. And he said like, yeah, but we're having trouble touching home plate. And it was, kind of the same reason he originally went there back in 2021 is that they needed offense from that spot is when the offense was a lot better placed, but it was still a weak point. It was just, it kind of existed as this safety valve for them to go to where they, don't get safety as a result of going and just throwing Sheets into that position. They're not really, Austin Slater is probably someone more you want complimentary of Benintendi. His history is such of playing all three positions, and he says he's kind of prepared to do that. But he's someone you might see platooning with him more, or giving Benintendi a day off when it's a left-handed starter on the mound, and he's DHing. But they're not really set up with these three viable outfielders to throw out there, where Benintendi can shift to the DH spot, and that was kind of indicated with how they handled it last year, where one, coaches were kind of defensive of Benintendi, saying like this is a guy playing through an injury, so thus they expect him to be better. As weird as it is to expect someone who's going into his 30s to be better, like they kind of have to treat it a little bit as a one-off in terms of what he's able to do and if he's able to maybe find more ways to adjust from losing a step, as opposed to when he's playing through an injury. It's just kind of everything's just kind of triage. Whereas Vaughn DH half the time the last 2 months of the season, you have kind of already this surplus of corner infielders, though not necessarily guys who have played first before, with Vargas and Ramos, that you were already kind of banging your head of how to get playing time, and maybe Lenyn Sosa forces his way offensively into considering him more. Certainly has to distinguish himself at other defensive positions. As much as I drift into self-parody about rhapsodizing how good he was in the 2 innings at first base he played in 2024. But you at least have that sort of candidates to force them there. And, I think obviously, Colson is going to come up probably if he does in 2025, presumably as a shortstop. But long-term, if he moves to third base, he's just another person pushing Ramos or Vargas or whoever else is putting themselves in the conversation over to being an option at first base. These are all kind of unproven options, but if Vaughn is one in the fold, which he now is after last Friday, where they kind of have talked about him as being his fundamental developmental project, someone who, has been below average defensively, and we can't necessarily expect to get better because he's not going to get bigger or faster. There's at least some value in taking some of the workload off of him defensively, or not relying on it, 140 games again. And if you think he's going to hit more, like he could be someone who could produce. I mean, he's got 110 WRC plus seasons in his bag. Like, as much as like there's kind of a genuine disappointment around him, like he theoretically could be, a 2-win DH if everything clicks, and certainly expecting more from him. It just seems like something they're already leaning towards accommodating a bit better than really rethinking their outfield. They don't have that many top-level outfield prospects. We certainly can't really bank on corner outfield projects or corner outfield soundings bigger than Austin Slater going forward. And, Justin Crawford, wouldn't be my favorite prospect return, but is a good example of the sort of if they got an outfield solution, it's probably someone who's AA or lower. Like, to have the sort of ceiling to be a long-term regular with the White Sox, you're probably not viewing someone who's major league ready. If you're getting someone major league ready, it's probably going to be more Dominic Fletcher size. So, not in terms of impact, not literal size. It could be a 6'4" guy. Who knows? But I just think they're more geared towards saying, we have plenty of infielders, we have plenty of corner-ish guys. We can shift Vaughn to halftime at first base, or we can, maybe DH becomes a spot for Edgar Caro at some point in the second half when he's not catching, sort of thing. Then I think that they're really going to move Andrew Benintendi into a role where he's DHing most of the time. He DH'd a little bit down the stretch, not meaningful, but I don't think that they're prepared in year 3, especially if they're trying to trade him. I think you're trying to present any hope of trading that contract as him as an everyday left field solution, and not as someone whose ceiling is really limited in terms of impact if he's your DH. I think from a White Sox offensive standpoint, Andrew Benintendi is the DH. He's earned it. We don't have any other 125 WRC plus guys walking through that door. From a contending standpoint, Andrew Benintendi as a DH is not probably a big value add from what you feel you can do on your own.
Sounds like Jim DH Hydra's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense given just how many guys they can rotate through if they want to play a hot hand, whether it's Ramos or Sosa or Vargas, and there are multiple guys competing for plate appearances at third base or first base, left field, etc. The thing I'm curious about, I think, and maybe why, I wouldn't advocate for the status quo, but if they did a return to say like Andrew Vaughn's gonna be most time first baseman, Benintendi most time left field, and then mix in the DH with the extra players, I am curious how the new coaching staff and how the new information flow might affect the team defense when it comes to positioning, since that was something that came up in the national exposés of everything the White Sox were doing wrong, and how poor their pregame preparation was. Like, I'm curious, if you do return some incumbents, do they play better, whether it's because they're healthier and standing in different spots? So I do want to know, you can't quite resimulate last season to say what would happen if you had better information, but that's one way of knowing if like Benintendi rebounds to be like average-ish, and so does Vaughn. Like, you could say maybe it is a case where they just have better starting positions and they don't have to cover as much ground as they were asked to last season. That's one option. The other thing I'm kind of considering with Benintendi is, there was the Achilles, and probably legit, but I'm also curious, he allowed a lot of extra bases, like a lot of balls to the gap or, slightly to the gap. They just had him moving laterally and runners not stopping, and Benintendi not playing, sense of urgency is a phrase I hate. But that's one case where you can actually see some urgency, like in terms of like the difference between like going 70% and 90% or 100% to a ball that's like towards the gap. He gave up a lot of bases like that. I remember John Schriffen breaking down and reading a promo as like the Twins are, I think it was the Twins, like, taking extra base in Benintendi, and like and Schriffen's already reading a promo, and like, he can't give up on, balls like that with anybody with average or better speed, because Benintendi can be exploited like that. And as much as it might have been like an Achilles thing, it might have been a bad habit thing too, of just, I'm not playing 100%, like, so I'm not used to running all out or running most out. And if that persisted into 2025, like, I would like to see Venable have some leverage to be able to enforce standards the way that standards have not been enforced for outfield play the last couple of years. So that's, I think, a tool I would want to see Will Venable have in his bag. But if it's a case where, Benintendi was physically limited, but also just limited by the coaching staff or analytics department, or just the way they did not work in tandem, or the way they just got by on doing the bare minimum, I'm curious to see if there's any improvement there, just by having better information to start with.
And the other thing with Benintendi is the arm, right? The arm strike. Too many guys, too many opposing teams have their base runners tag up on Benintendi first to second, or the thing that irritates the hell out of me, Deepish fly ball to left field, runner on second, no fear. They're tagging at second and advancing to third on a fly ball to left field. You rarely see that in Major League Baseball because the average left fielder in Major League Baseball, that's just too risky of a base running decision, and that could easily be a two plan. Now when Benintendi's out there, this is not an ideal situation for the White Sox because of Benintendi's contract. You got a left fielder who doesn't move all that great with one of the weakest outfield arms in Major League Baseball. And you got a 5'10" first baseman who doesn't have great foot speed. So it really impacts his range and his catch radius for unproven third baseman that you're going to be walking into in 2025 that could use as much help as possible for a good defensive first baseman to save some throws coming across the diamond. Again, you can't carry 2 DHs. That would be a wonderful rule change the White Sox could really take advantage of. I think I am agreeing with James of moving Benintendi to taking up 50 to 75% of the plate appearances at DH, at least to start 2025. But I would like to see Chris Getz add another outfielder, maybe someone like Austin Hayes that could play in left field. I know he was not very good last year, but thanks to the most recent profile in him in The Athletic, he was dealing with a pretty serious kidney infection. Before last year, he was positive in defensive runs saved, according to Fangraphs.com. In left field, Hayes, Austin Slater, you can mix guys around. I think you have a better chance. All the Austins. Moving away from the Austin Andrews to the Austins.
Started the All-Star game in center over Luis Robert.
Oh, yes, that's right. That is right.
Also, 5'10"?
Is Vaughn 5'10"? Am I being too nice?
You're going to be shaving him down to 5'6" by spring training.
He ain't 6 feet tall. I tell you that. You're tall, James. I know you're taller than him. All right.
5'11".
Okay. So we'll see what the White Sox do, but it is something to ponder about this offseason going into the winter meetings. What's the next White Sox move? Well, I think James laid out a very good case study. You got to improve defensively, and I'm sorry, Chris Getz, you need to take the glove away from either Andrew Benintendi or Andrew Vaughn. You got to pick one of those. Finally, because the sweepstakes are heating up for Juan Soto, because his agent Scott Boras is running negotiations very much like an RFP. So for those that are in business, you know what a request for a proposal is. You've been part of this process. You've done the meetings with the clients. And then after you do your meetings with the clients and you gather all the information, somewhat of an interview, they get to ask questions about you. You get to ask questions about them. Then you turn around and then you make your best possible offer for their business. This is how it is being ran for Juan Soto. And it seems that the favorites now in the running to make an offer. So the first wave of offers are going to come. And then after gauging how serious the offers are, Scott Boras will whittle it down to the best 3 offers. So Juan Soto can pick one. Maybe he picks one during the winter meetings. But the favorites, it sounds like, are the both New York teams, the Yankees and the Mets, the Boston Red Sox, the Toronto Blue Jays, and of course, Los Angeles Dodgers. So, gentlemen, who do you think ultimately signs Juan Soto? So, Jim, I'll start with you. What does your gut say where Soto will end up signing?
I feel it's the Yankees. Reminds me of Aaron Judge, where they had him. He was great. They know exactly what he brings. He's a prime age free agent. They have experience with Boras, with Garrett Cole, another prime age free agent who has worked out well for them, making that commitment. With Judge, there was that flirtation with San Francisco, and, other teams were interested, but the Yankees in the end ponied up because it would be dumb not to. They're the Yankees. It'd be dumb maybe for some teams to do it. We're talking certain dollar figures, but the Yankees should be able to make that happen. So that's why I would think that they make it happen. Given that Soto's been traded by 2 teams before reaching free agency, maybe there's something about him that makes teams think that they can get by with less. That's my one reservation of saying Yankees, but I would say there was a proof of concept right there. They traded for him. He was awesome. He was exactly what they hoped he would be. Why not keep doing that? Because he's only 26. Like, they should keep doing that.
That's a good pick. How about you, James? What does your gut say where Soto could land?
I just want to say, as a sports journalist with the Latin American history degree, I very much appreciate that you explained what ROP, what it was, RPM?
RFP, request for proposal.
RFP, in one ear and out the other. I glean Mets because I think that's an ownership group that I think would be both responsive to like kind of a last minute, hey, up the ante call from Scott Boras, and also an ownership group that probably wouldn't balk at the idea of, or maybe even embrace the idea of one-upping the Ohtani contract in some way, and being willing to pay for it, and both what that message would send to the league, be it both players and other teams, but what they're willing to do. I think that's a sort of line that maybe you could see other ownership groups, Red Sox, Yankees, obviously Soto's a special case, but maybe have signals in the past having red lines that they're not willing to cross in terms of allotment. And, the Dodgers, given the commitments they've made, you could understand their inclination to bow out at some point. But I feel like the Mets have that extra gear they could reach to. Maybe it doesn't get to that point and thus goes to another team. Maybe Soto has actual leanings about what he wants beyond just a financial commitment that, greater wrinkle here somewhere. But I feel like they're the ones that would go the extra mile in this case, and have reasons to go for it in the way that, the Dodgers had extra reasons to go the extra mile for Ohtani, given what he meant for their fan base and market.
Yeah, I'm with James. I'm going to pick the Mets as well. But at the same time, wasn't this the whole point of the Dodgers signing Ohtani to the contract that he signed last year? To give them the opportunity, if they wanted to add another superstar, they could. And that's why I can't count out the Dodgers. And I guess there's a part of me that wants to see the Los Angeles Dodgers become like what Duke basketball. They become the super villains of Major League Baseball. Because, Jim, can you imagine if Juan Soto signed with the Dodgers and that lineup? It'd just be stupid good. They would have the chance of having one of the greatest lineups in Major League Baseball history if they were able to sign Juan Soto.
Yeah, and it got me thinking about, they have Mookie Betts and the Red Sox being interested in Juan Soto. It's like they could have just had Mookie Betts, like if they just didn't take that for granted. So it's interesting that the Red Sox are in it, and I'm curious whether it's actual interest or whether they want to be seen as big players again. But ultimately, like they've been half-assing a lot of off seasons, and so I would just continue to expect that to be the case. But to have Mookie Betts, sign him to that deal and then sign Soto would be like, if the Red Sox were legitimately interested, I could see that being like, oh, so having Mookie Betts at that contract didn't preclude you from signing Ohtani nor signing, Juan Soto. Like that just, I can imagine that being extra embarrassing for Red Sox ownership if they are that invested. Maybe they don't care, and this is all just kind of a show. But I want to know their angle.
I'd be in favor of the Dodgers getting Soto because they'd be the most likely to like pair some like weird former White Sox developmental like breakthrough right next to him. Like Soto's batting behind Danny Mendick, who's like OPSing 800 for some reason. And I feel like they're the org to do
There's
it.
a part of me, let's say if James is right, Jim, Soto signs with the Mets. How are Yankees fans going to handle that? I can't imagine they would handle that well.
They don't handle anything well.
It's true.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah,
we won the American League pennant. Who cares?
Right.
It's all about
2019 AL MVP voting emails coming out. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just they've gone so long without a championship. How can you expect them to act rationally?
Yeah. Sure have. They sure have. Well, we'll see where Juan Soto ends up. There's some inkling that maybe he will make his announcement at the winter meetings. He's already trolling on Instagram He has a quick reel of him doing a press conference, but it doesn't give any hint of where he could be possibly signing. So he's really enjoying being courted right now and being recruited by other teams in Major League Baseball. But we'll continue to get more information. Again, he is the number one target this offseason. And if he does sign in early December, that's great news for the rest of the free agents, because the teams that do not get a chance to sign Juan Soto, they can quickly pivot. Willy Adames, Alex Bregman, even like Peter Alonso, Christian Walker on the first baseman side. Anthony Santander could also get a big payday, which that might surprise some people as well. It can get the market moving, which generates a lot more conversation, which would be great, because a year ago it was dead for a while. So hopefully we do not have a slow December. But that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening, especially if you are traveling and you are listening to us, or if you are doing Thanksgiving prep work as far as food. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. You can subscribe to the Sox Machine Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You could also listen and watch the show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms, especially on Blue Sky, which you can follow us at Sox Machine. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. You can follow James at JR Fegan on all the social media platforms. If you enjoy our work and you want more, you can get more by helping support Sox Machine at patreon.com/SoxMachine. You will get full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox. You'll definitely want to be a subscriber, especially as we get to the winter meetings, as we'll have more exclusive content with the reporting coming out of Dallas of what is going on for the Chicago White Sox, with the offseason rumors and interviews with coaching members and other new staff members as well. Sounds like, James, we should know the full coaching staff early next week after the Thanksgiving Day weekend.
Correct.
So again, you can sign up at patreon.com/SoxMachine. Monthly plans start at $5. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.